I was listening to Kanye West and Jay-Z this morning, Diamonds from Sierra Leone, while I was working out. And Jay-Z said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man." And I was like, damn, that's amazing. And it really got me thinking about branding. And branding has been on the forefront of my mind for the past few years for a lot of reasons. But I'll explain why if I back up. I've had the benefit of building a few construction companies, and my primary company that or I would say my foundational company that I built nearly 20 years ago, initially could hardly be called a company. It was very much just as a lot of builders do. I formed a company, and it was a, eat what you kill, get work, make money, to get more work, make money, and just continue on that cycle, on a constant cycle of hustle work. And that was because young, hungry, I didn't have a capital infusion to invest and really think about how I was going to structure the company or write a business plan. It was just get work, make money. This is like the construction industry's number one mantra, especially for a lot of guys starting out or a lot of guys who are just a small operation. So that's how I approached my construction company. And then flash forward, the growth that I've had with that and where we went on the spectrum of the projects we were building and the owners we were working with. I never hit pause even after, 12, 15, 16, I never hit pause and said, okay, let's think about our brand now. Let's take a break. And the reason is it never stops. Like when you're in it, you're in it. Regardless of your growth, it's hard to ever stop, pause, and just really think about the foundational things in your company, like the branding and your customer facing image, that you want to change or that you want to completely redo. But I had the luxury of starting another company a few years back and in a different market, and I approached it differently. I was properly capitalized to start that company, and that doesn't mean we had a ton of money to start the company. It just means I had some money to think about where I was going to invest it in starting the company, and what did I want to put that money towards marketing? Did I want to put it towards hiring an employee for XYZ, or did I want to think about brand? And I definitely only wanted to think about brand. I wanted to come into a hyper-localized market and build an impeccable brand as fast as I possibly could, because I really believe that in today's world, brand over everything is the most important thing, meaning brand over sales, brand over marketing for a direct response like magazines, online, etc. And the reason is, don't have brand, you could advertise for a direct response or you could have sales. However, on the back end, if you don't have the brand, people are going to check you out. People are going to want to go to your website. People are going to want to go to your socials. People are going to want to see what you're doing. And that's where the brand and the brand identity, the brand strength, and the brand equity really comes into play. So starting with brand makes everything way easier, because effective marketing happens because of brand. Effective marketing doesn't happen because you have a great ad in a magazine but nothing else to back yourself up. That's not effective marketing. You might get a response, but then you have to follow through on that response. And in helping to follow through on that response without you actually having to do anything is your brand that backs you. I had a sales rep in the Bay Area for my first company for 8 years. And having not really focused on brand, I had a website with some decent photos and some social media, but there was no continuity in it. It was very much just scattered. Here, let me take a few photos. I just didn't take the time to really ever pause and do it properly. would get our foot in the door. And don't get me wrong, having a sales rep in the field who would mainly prospect architects, designers, realtors, and that could be, in your specific scenario, if you're a niche subcontractor or whatever it may be, you might have someone like that that's prospecting, the respective people that could give you project lead flow. But we would still, even when we got our foot in the door with a new architect, with a new designer that wanted to work with us, or gave us the opportunity to work with them on bidding a project or working with their clients, there was a bunch of vetting that had to happen. And can we come see some of your work? Can we come look at your projects and see what you're doing? Can we talk to your past customers? And I think a lot of that had to do, there's a normal due diligence that people do. However, if you have the trust and credibility and just this built-in loyalty because of a strong brand, a lot of that kind of goes out the window because your brand is the due diligence. And I'm reminded of a company in the Bay specifically that I won't name, who one Thanksgiving, my aunt mentioned she wanted to have her kitchen done. This is when I was young. I was just starting out, and she's not going to have me do it. She mentioned, yeah, I would really love, if I had the money, to have so-and-so that I won't name do my kitchen and remodel. And I always thought it was funny because in her industry, the company she was naming didn't have the greatest reputation. And when I say in our industry, that was amongst contractors, subcontractors, vendors. They were just known for decent work. They can build a fine house, but their finish wasn't that great. The subs had complaints because their project management flow wasn't great. However, on one of the top 3 busiest streets and historic streets in the Bay, they had a 1910 2-story Craftsman decked out, full landscaping, nice flag banners that line the street. You go online, it's videos of the owner talking about their process, interviews with their employees, full company bio, pictures of their past projects, the history of their company, how they've been doing it for 25 years. I mean, just told this beautiful story. And in unison, they had the social presence, and they did some direct advertising to kind of piggyback on that. But their public-facing persona was impeccable. And that that allowed them to kind of leapfrog over the fact that they were like a mediocre builder. Yes, they could build. I'm not discrediting that they couldn't build a fine house and the customer would be happy at the end of the day. But it was nothing as epic as their marketing or on their branding side seemed. And that always just struck me. So focusing now more on branding has really made me realize that the branding can really catapult you to a different level in the customer's eyes as far as the perception is concerned. And it basically breaks a lot of these barriers to landing new projects. And it also increases your likelihood of closing projects that are prospective to you. And it's only because of that trust and loyalty that your brand builds. And a few things specific to the construction industry and how to build brand and how I've thought about building brand. And these are just kind of like key bullet points in general business in brand building. I'm no marketing expert, don't get me wrong, but I've become really obsessed with this whole brand deal. And I keep saying brand. I hope it gets beaten to your head. Number one is brand differentiates. So a lot of, I would say 95% of builders, and maybe that's being, overly generous, like maybe it's less, have zero brand and zero presence. They started a company, they can do good work, they may get referral business, they likely get referral business because they do good work, but when it comes to a consumer who might not have a referral or is new to town or just looking for someone in Google listings, the differentiation matters. And that differentiation could be done in a really easy way. It could be, you will have to invest a little money, but if you think of it as a percentage of the profits that you're bringing in, if you can put a little bit aside, that money can go a long ways. Let me think of a stonemason. 3 stonemasons. One is, a small shop. One's a medium shop. Whatever size. I don't know why I mentioned size. That doesn't matter. Let's say they're all on an equal playing field as far as work is concerned. Well, if they all are also on Google and they all have 5 stars with 10 reviews and everything's equal across the board unequivocally, the only differentiator is going to be the branding. And what that means is the amount of effort or the quality of photos or videos or something online explaining what it is you do and why you do it, or the backstory of your company. That's going to be the tipping point that makes someone choose you over the next company. So it's as simple as at the end of every project or towards the end of every project, maybe go out and get professional photos done. And when I say professional photos, go to a photographer who actually knows proper lighting, architectural photography. It might cost you a little more. I mean, a photo shoot's probably going to cost $1,000, $1,500, but they can come in and shoot specific angles, specific photos, and really make your work look 5x better than it is, just on a professional sense. It's going to look great. Also, socials are huge these days. You can differentiate yourself a lot by using social platforms, kind of documenting the flow of your work, documenting what you're doing, talking a little bit about each project. Those right there, just those couple things, you're going to be different from the competition. You're going to stand out, and people are going to trust you more because they're going to see this presence that you have online, and likely they're going to choose you over the other companies that don't have that same presence. And in doing that, you're kind of also, you move on to this next bullet point, which is you start to build this inherent customer loyalty. The customer loyalty may not even come from customers you have. When you have a good brand and people see what you're doing, then customers tend to gravitate towards you. And there's an inherent loyalty that comes with maybe someone's never even worked with you before. However, they've seen you online, they see your photos, maybe you've been on Instagram and talked a bit about your process and what you do. Inherently, they're going to be drawn to that, and there's going to be this loyalty that comes hand in hand with that gives you, probably 2-3x's your chance of when you give a bid that they're going to be accepting of your proposal, even if it's maybe a bit higher than the competition, because you have this inherent loyalty. And hand in hand with that loyalty is like there's the trust and credibility. And it can be based on nothing. That's what the beautiful thing is about brand. The trust and credibility. Maybe you've done one project because you're just getting started and you've documented every aspect of that project and gotten super professional photos at the end of the project, and it just looks crisp, tidy. You know, every little angle, you can see the quality of your work. Like instantly you have trust and credibility because you've created this display for the customer to see, and you've created this personal brand and interaction for the customer to almost feel like they know you and they're comfortable with you without ever even meeting you. And they're comfortable with the quality of your work because you've showcased it. But it takes taking a deep breath and investing a little bit of money and time, especially. I know we all want to, 90% of the time our job sites look like chaos, even the day after we clean them, because that's the nature of construction. But if you're able to take, half a day, clean it up nice and tight, just broom clean, photos with lighting dialed in. I mean, that half a day of cleaning plus another half a day of photos, so you're pausing for one day, could go a long way and mean a lot of project flow in the future. And this moving on kind of goes hand in hand with you also want to do marketing in unison with your branding, people tend to fall short on the marketing because they think if I put an ad out in a magazine, or if I put an ad out in, the paper or online in some publication, because I have an ad, people are going to call me and then I'll be able to sell myself or show them what I've done. But you're like instantly creating this barrier for yourself where it's like you're spending a lot of money on advertising, which a lot of people do. And if you don't have this brand backing you or this brand perception backing you, then all you're doing is getting your foot in the door, but with hurdles. What if you got your foot in the door without hurdles? And without hurdles just means super tight branding makes your marketing way more effective, because when someone goes to whatever publication you advertised in and decides that they are going to call you to work with you, likely before they ever make that call, they're going to be going online, www.joes blah, blah, blah. They're going to be going to Instagram. They're going to be going to maybe Facebook, a number of things. It's probably going to be online, and then they're going to look at Instagram. It's typically what everyone does, and maybe they're going to go on Facebook. It's demographic wise, like people, it's hit and miss. But if they're able to go to your website, and if they're able to go to whatever social channels you have that you've been working on procuring, that step of vetting is out of the way. Therefore, that hurdle's been knocked down. You don't even have to go through that. And the likelihood is, because they see what you're doing, I don't know, they might ask you for a referral. They might ask you for seeing your work firsthand, but maybe not. Those hurdles can quickly get moved out of the way when marketing and branding meet. Lastly, with the branding, one thing that was tough for me, even when I had, going back to the Bay Area when I was building my initial company, didn't focus on branding, but I had a sales rep. However, the Bay Area is a large market, and one thing I've learned in being in a smaller, like very hyper local market, is branding is exponentially more important when you're hyper local, because you only have a small pool of people and basically one big pot to market to. When you're in a large city, I have a few pointers. When you're marketing and building brand in a large city with a lot of suburbs and a lot of ancillary cities that you may want to target, it's extremely hard to build brand because people tend to get very compartmentalized and tribal with their selection of subcontractors, builders, etc. in these large suburban areas. So what that means is, if I'm focusing, I'll use some, you won't know these areas, you might, but if I'll use the example of the Bay Area, you might say there's Willow Glen, there's Menlo Park, there's Atherton. And these are 3 areas you might want to target specifically, in my case, for home building. Well, if I'm building my brand based around current projects I have, and all of my projects are in a 4th area, Almaden, it's hard to build a brand surrounded by or really focused on one particular area to get your foot in the door in another. So when building brand in a large metro, you really have to think about a hyper micro sense of branding and targeting the areas. I mean, realtors do this all the time. They flag neighborhoods, or they market to specific neighborhoods, and that's not a bad idea in construction either, because it's so much easier to build a brand. Like if I specifically said I want to be Menlo Park's #1 builder, and all I did was advertise in Menlo Park publications, focus my work. Maybe if I'm doing projects in Almaden, I'm not hyper focused on here's my new Almaden build. I'm focused on here's a build, keep it vague, that I'm doing, and here's these specific details, knowing that these details might also interest the consumers in multiple markets. And I could gear that towards, hey, we're in Menlo, we're doing this, we're looking for prospective clients in Menlo Park. Oh, we're looking to prospect architects in this specific area. Here's what we can do, and just kind of highlight the pure strengths, but not highly specific things about what you're doing. Yeah, because again, prospecting and branding in a hyper local market can gain huge dividends, because people are going to want to go to the person that is market specific for that region. And by region, I mean, in this case, neighborhood or specific cities within a huger metro. So I see hyper locality, even if you're not in a small town, create a hyper local mentality where you can focus your branding and focus your marketing on like very closed regions, or very like micro regions within a larger region. And once you do that, you could brand to a micro region within a larger region. And once you feel like you've saturated your branding there, you can kind of shift your branding to start to go to other areas within that region and focus your branding and marketing on those areas. But when not thinking hyper local, you're just gonna get super disjointed, and your branding is gonna be all over the place, and no one's really gonna understand what the hell it is you do or what your core competency is. So I think that's important to keep in focus. That's branding. That's my thoughts. A lot of rambling.